But
here,
it's a very
apparently.
powerful car, and they have a
We're good.
gravel driveway, and
All
other
right, we're live
cars.
right now.
Not anymore.
Is Tom gonna make it?
Tom said he's running late, so that was the last I heard.
Is we should wait for him, or?
I think he meant like move on. I'm
Okay.
running late because of an
Okay.
issue at work, so.
Sorry about being late, folks. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Roll call, please, Kelly.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Finch? Mr. Natalie? Dr. Beniti?
Here.
Mrs. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Beck? Yes. Mrs. Sandy?
Yes.
So, seeing there's no audience to visitors, we'll get right to the budget.
Okay, so what I did is an overview of the budget. This is more of where we're at this year right now, kind of hanging out, and a little bit about next year. We don't have a lot of numbers for next year, but I just kind of want to give an update of where we were for the business committee, kind of as a top level. So this is the historical of the 2018 budget, 2019 budget. The education fund is our largest fund. It encompasses like our instructional expenditures, supports for teachers, food service, all of that. I've given our fund balances for everybody as well. Here's what we budgeted in blue, and then the remaining for each of our supplies and benefits, purchase services. We're trending about where we should be. We're about 3/4 of the way through the year, and that's kind of where we're trending with our budget as well. The next slide shows for the education budget, we've expended about 64% so far, and we have 35% left. And really in our fiscal year, we have April, May, June, and then we're done. So we only have about 3 months left of this fiscal year. In operation and maintenance, this is our fund that does our maintaining our buildings, repairing grounds, all of that. O&M kind of kicks up a little bit at this time of year with the mowing and sports and stuff, but our fund balance is there. We've spent, you can see where our budget is and where our remaining is as well. On that fund, for supplies, salaries, benefits, purchase services, supplies, and so forth. And this one, we're also trending, sorry. We've expended to date 68% of our O&M budget. We have about 31% left remaining for that as well. And the majority of O&M, transportation, education is salaries. And that just, we know, is kind of a cyclical thing that just keeps going. Our debt service, we use this for our bond and interest payments. Our fund balance is there. You will see our debt services dropped below our budget amount, and that's because of the abatement that we made, that the board chose to make, so that was just more than what we anticipated in our bond payment. So, our transportation fund is 40. It's all of our transportation costs, salaries, repairs, purchases. So far this year, we've spent, our budget and our remaining. With transportation fund, the one area that we may go over budget this year because we decided to purchase more buses than we had anticipated in the budget at the beginning. I'm watching that closely to see if we're going to have to amend the budget or not. I think we'll be okay, but I'm still watching that. We've actually paid for 4 buses. We're still waiting to pay for 6 more. So, and in our budget so
Hold
far.
on 1 second.
Yeah.
When is our May board meeting?
And I'll watch those deadlines for that.
Yeah, because 1 for posting.
Yeah.
2, we got to make sure that we give it 30 days.
21st. No, it'd be the 28th, but 4th.
Gotcha, you're right. So- Yeah, we'll have to watch the legalities on that because I believe if we're going to do something with a budget amendment, then we have to allow 30 days.
Yes. Yeah. At this point, I don't anticipate.
Move that meeting up a week in order for that reason.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
I think we've moved the May meeting ahead a week, haven't we had in the past?
And then it's got to be
About a
amended
week
by,
early.
yeah, and then it's got to be amended by June, right?
For that reason.
So then I don't know when the June meeting is. Let's make sure that we get, if we need to do something, we got to adjust board
Yeah.
meetings to.
We can
make
watch
sure
those
we meet
dates, but,
windows.
and I'll know here in the next week or so what we need to do there, so.
Yeah, I just want to watch our deadlines. and make sure
Right now, we've expended 70%, and we have about 29% remaining in transportation.
Okay, so if we hit the May meeting, we're okay. I mean, if we use that same date, May 21st, June 25th. Gotcha. So we'd be okay.
Thanks.
Sorry, Melissa.
That's okay. Yes, you're good. Sorry. We're lagging here.
Have a hammer on the truck.
Universal key.
Sometimes you're right.
Okay, the next one is IMRF Social Security. This is basically the benefits portion of Social Security, Medicaid taxes for our staff. Our fund balance is there as well. As you can see, our budget, there's only benefits in this fund, so our budget's there and then the remaining's there as well. And we're trending just like all the other funds, 60% at 39% remaining. Our capital projects is land purchases, construction. This is where our sales tax money gets deposited into. Our fund balance is there. Capital projects, our purchase services went a little bit under, but all the rest of it, you can see what we budgeted and what we have remaining there. And there's only about 3% remaining. Typically, capital fund projects happen in the summer, so a lot of this fund's budget is spent in the beginning of the year, and then it just kind of rides out the rest of the year. Our tort fund is like workers' comp, unemployment, insurance, risk management stuff. Not much happens in the tort fund, which is good. Our fund balance is there. I did not do a remaining because it's just insurance that comes out of there. And our fire safety, our fund balance, and there's not much that comes in and out of fire safety either. So overall expenditures for the year, we've expended about 70% of our budget. We still have about 29% overall remaining in our budget so far this year. Our 19-20 budget, like I said, we're still waiting on a lot of things. Revenue, one thing, our revenue in Illinois comes from local property taxes, and this is generated through our tax levy process, which happens November, December timeframe. State or evidence-based funding, last year we got about an additional $400,000. We do not know our funding yet for this year, so we're still waiting for that. And then federal money as well, we get grants for special ed and ELL and that kind of stuff. As I said, our allocations for evidence-based have not been released. Typically, I would guess the next month and a half or so, we should be getting those numbers from the state.
And then sometimes too, we hear ahead of time, like, get ready, you're gonna get caught, or we have not heard any of that. So our assumption is the EBF is gonna be more true. So usually they'll start warning you, get ready, you're gonna be missing a payment, or really late payment.
Yeah, they've been much more free.
Prepping you for it.
Absolutely. And like I had said, we received about $400,000 last year additional than we did before. Our tax levy accounts for about 75% of our revenue for the district. Typically, the tax levy, we run about a CPI, which is about a 2.1% increase. So typically, when we talk about revenue for the district, the conservative approach is about 2.1%, because that's about what our tax levy runs. Sometimes we get more or less, it just depends. And then our grants, sorry, there's a big space there, but ELL, agriculture, title grants, these typically stay flat. Sometimes we'll get rollover that we didn't use the year before, but typically when we budget, we just budget those flat unless we hear something different. These were our main expenditures total from this year's budget. Typically, we try to keep most of those flat depending. Salaries obviously and benefits go up, but everything else we try to kind of keep from year to year. Any questions on the overview of the budget? More will be coming as we get more numbers, more in-depth things will be coming too. I'm working with the principals right now to kind of get a feel for their buildings and where we're at and from there. So.
Quick reminder,
Yeah.
for maybe the group doesn't know, we're spending how much on summer projects this summer?
That I don't have the numbers in front of me there.
500,000?
Sounds close. I know our roof project is at a lot less than what we considered. I think it was 250 for that. We're gonna come back on this half. So we're
Oh,
doing
nice.
that. She's nice. That's a good think, what's that? Sewer project might go up a little more than what we, you remember what we estimated there? 100? Sound right? And then with some of the other, a lot of times we put that built-in placeholder about 500,000.
We anticipate our tax revenue at 5%, probably stays flat for next year.
Essentially, yeah. Our new construction's not been much here, and it depends on the EAV too, but the conservative approach is that CPI or 2.1%. It really, the EBF funding model will kind of determine.
And we abated 1.1 this year. We're scheduled to abate what next year?
I don't have it. It's pretty close to that, I believe. I know it steps up every year
Okay.
of the abatement schedule. I can get that for you. I don't have
No, I
it.
just didn't know if
Yeah.
we knew. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions or any more information I can bring for you guys?
Seeing there's no other questions or comments from the group, we'll move on to transportation.
Yeah, I'll start us off and maybe start a little bit. So Melissa and I have talked a lot about transportation for next year. As you know, drivers are hard to find. So what we've kind of done is take a step back and we're re-looking at how we do routes to make sure we're as efficient as we can be. We've also prioritized things. So we've put together a priority list of those that are eligible for transportation absolutely have to be taken care of first. Preschool students that need transportation would be taken care of. And we also have to then look out to our outsourced students. And by that I mean we send students to Camelot, to Rockford for our hearing school, Allendale, Clay, and also Belvedere Stars and the ELL program down there, which is towards the Belvedere South Campus. We have used First Student, especially for some of our outsourced routes, but First Student is even struggling for bus routes and is telling us right now that they may not be able to assist us with bus routes either because they're struggling for drivers too. So we are really kind of taking a look right now, making sure that we take care of those that absolutely have to be transported first. So that means we're going to kind of revisit about our pay for students that pay for. So we put together, and I'll let Melissa talk a little bit about some of the numbers that we have for our students that pay for transportation as an option.
Yeah, so as of February, the district collected about $12,000 in paid student transportation fees. Last year, the district collected about $19,000 in paid fees. And so our plan is, as you can see, we have about 21 riders at Poplar Grove, 9 at Capron, and then the 17 preschoolers. We've already decided that the preschoolers will be riding for the buses, so those will no longer be paid riders. My goal is at the end of, before school gets out, to send a letter to our paid riders now saying, we'll still take applications, but it's going to be filled on a basis of if there's room. And essentially we'll have to look at the routes and say, are there seats on this bus available? And they may or may not be able to get paid transportation like they have in the past. And so just giving parents that heads up that it may not be available next year depending on routes and how many buses we have in. And it's kind of hard to know too where those paid riders are going to be. So we will take the applications, but it just we won't let them know that there's a route until we've got all of our kids set first. So that's kind of just our plan right now. We're still working on routes and numbers and trying to clean that up a little bit, but I just want to give you guys a heads up of what we're kind of thinking so far. So.
And just right now with how we're stretched, we have all of our positions filled, but if we have a couple of people out sick or something like that, it stretches. And then all of a sudden we're adjusting pre-K routes, and I hate adjusting pre-K routes and making them getting to schools. Prioritizing first what we've got to get done first thing.
So will there be board action coming forward with this?
The paid transportation form says that it will be granted based upon need.
I guess I think that was your secretary's way of saying blow your nose.
And yeah, I would say that would be one. We'll keep the board in tune of what we're going to do. This was more informational tonight to let you know just kind of the problems we're facing, how we're prioritizing, trying to tackle it. I wish I had, and if anybody's got the $1 million answer to finding drivers, I'll take it.
We've talked about contacting cab companies too, and that's on my list to see if any of their drivers would go back and get that bus endorsement, because they can take some of our one kids to a STAR program or something. So if maybe we could work with them and say, hey, if you do this, we, you know, make a partnership. So we have talked about that, trying to get creative, because right now none of our cab companies have drivers that have that bus endorsement, and that's really what we need. So we're looking at alternatives too. So.
You can make that process somewhat easier by going and getting the Class J endorsement, so they don't have to get the air brake pieces of that CDL.
Oh, gotcha.
So if you're going to just use those people for specific pieces like that, maybe do some research on where you are or where you need to be with that. 'Cause
Okay.
that's a lot less training, a lot less testing. They can't do as much, but you know, with what you're talking about doing, that might be a way to help get around that, make it easier, make the process easier.
Okay, great, thank you.
It gives us some more options.
So as you think about this, I mean, if you were to put a bus route together and a bus carried 77 and you had 3 seats, you had 74 people on it, do you see yourself allowing that bus to get completely filled up, or would you just say, no, we're not going to put more kids
No.
on this, we got to leave some room for an extra kid to come in?
You do, and I mean, 3 kids to a seat are like 3 kindergartners to a seat. You
Yeah.
guys know, I mean, like they're small, and so the more kids you get on a bus too, sometimes the behavior increases too. And so I want to be respectful of our drivers, our kids. So I don't look to fill with your guys' approval. I mean, I would not look to fill it to capacity just to get our paid riders in, and that's kind of where we're at.
And I sit and stare at it, and then I think about them getting on with their book bags nowadays, and the winter coats and all that stuff, and those seats are tight. I think there's a middle ground though too. I don't want to run a bus of 6, 10 kids, you know. But gosh, packing with 77 in high schools, middle school kids creates a tinderbox. It's something to worry about.
We see that tinderbox behavior at the elementary levels.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, and everywhere.
I've got upper 60s on 2 buses, and it fights a lot. And there's just not enough places to put. I mean, as you move, it's bad. So,
Yeah, it's a challenge.
yeah.
Anybody else for transportation? Thank you. Pre-K.
I'm sitting right next to you.
Nice.
You get to see all my notes.
Nice.
All right. So at the last board meeting, it was requested that we go back and kind of look at feasibility of, having preschool at each of the schools. What would it look like? I'm not even going to go off of that. What would it look like if we added 5 seats? How can we reach all of our at-risk students? How can we basically meet the needs of all the kids, or as many as possible? So what I started at, before I looked into the cost of staffing at all 3 of the buildings, I looked at, well, what population what's the enrollment going to look at? And I know one of the big concerns was this wait list that we have of the children on this wait list that is that we develop through our screening process. So what you could put up, do you have this document the Google document that I shared with you? So what I did look into was, how many students are we going to have next year? And actually looking at the number of returning students, the number of incoming students from early intervention, which that's Boone County children who have been identified, and all of our waitlist students. So if we took everyone in, we would only have 53 students. Our seat capacity right now for preschool in just the one building with the 4 sessions we have at 15 students each, we did the math, this is 60 seats. We have enough seats available in one building to meet the needs of every single child that is currently on the wait list, currently enrolled, and the students we anticipate coming from EI or early intervention in Boone County this year. So, and that's without growing the program by 5 seats per session up to that 80 that we had kind of proposed earlier. So then I looked at, well, what are these children on the wait list that are ranked based on need? What do their needs look like? And so the state has a recommended rating form that we go by. We have adopted the state's rating form, which, if you were interested in it, you're right next to me, so you get to see it. It is, there's a possible of 295 points that children, can earn, if you will. Our students on the current wait list that we've screened this year, our students' ratings range from 0 to 72 points.
The more points,
The more
at risk.
points, the more at risk. So then I broke that down even further. Of those 25 students on the waiting list that will be age eligible next year, 16 of them have between 0 and 14 points. So it's still very low. We really wouldn't consider these children at risk. And then the remaining, that doesn't matter, 6 students have between 58 and 72 points. So, yeah, 6 students between 58 and 72 points, and the remaining students on our wait list are between 0 and 14. So, again, looking at it before going into how can we get, if we would have to put programs in each of the building in order to meet the needs of the students, I just looked at, well, what are we looking at for next year without changing the program whatsoever? And basically, we're going to be able to meet the needs of every child we've screened this year, whether they're at 0 at risk or, an elevated, which might be our elevated student at 72, which isn't even close to being topped out at receiving the points. So
And we still have more seats available for those that sign up.
we still have more seats available. So I have, and this is another thing to consider. Oftentimes, parents bring their children in to be screened for preschool, and when we send them the letter, which we send out in May, they respectfully decline. They say certain things like, well, I just wanted to see where my little guy is. And they say we're not interested in the program, and they don't accept that. Some, it doesn't work with their schedule. Let's say the opening is in a morning session, and they really wanted afternoon. We do our best to accommodate those preferences, but sometimes it doesn't work with schedules, so the parents will decline that way. So, our students who are on the wait list right now at 25, most likely not all 25 children will come in. So while we're looking at 53 as our max that will be enrolled possibility, that's still leaving us 7 seats that would be available for students who we screen throughout the year. So,
And then that's based on what the state requirements were. We had kind of brought back a proposal, like if we don't qualify for state funding, we could up it another 5 and include a few more because we're not under the state guidelines. But we still have 7 seats available right now for the state size guidelines. The state came out and announced last Friday they are going to reinstate the preschool for all grant. You have to apply by June 10th, I think it is. And this time it's not a competitive run like it was the last time they did this. They're going back to the need based on what your school is. With tier 1s getting first crack at preschool, tier 2s, we're tier 1. So my hope is we fall right back to where we were. And I think, what did we say, it was 125 is what we received from the state? 125,000 we received from the state to run the preschool for all. So we've got seats available right now under the guides we've got. If the state kicks in, that'll help us out some.
Questions? Allison,
Yes.
I'm curious, so that's great news, if I'm understanding everything correctly, is when the presentation was first given to us, and we were talking about limiting and all those prioritizations and eligibility and levels that you were talking about, we were talking about how to fill all those in. Why originally were there so many constraints? Like,
to the 15?
Yeah,
Those are state.
why-
So because if you opt in for the state preschool for all money, they bring those constraints, like you're only allowed 15 out
It,
I don't
it
even
has to
know
be
them
a
all
truly
off the
blended
top.
program, which we intend on continuing with that because that is best practice. That's what's best for kids. And so we have 5 spots or 5 seats in each session of that 15 that have to be special education
This will
students.
still let us fall underneath those, okay.
Mhm.
And then we just expand it.
Yeah. And so then what, the state caps it at 15, and we just said that if the state's not going to fund us, we don't have to fall under those guidelines. So our original come to the board was to say, what if we grew it by another 5? Because if we could capture a few more kids, get them into school, and then, we start talking about, gosh, let's not leave any kid out. So, but right now, based on what we've got for kids that have signed up and screened, we've still got, under the state's program, we've still got 7 seats available that are still open.
And then when the board seemed to be interested in expanding it even further, we just hadn't considered even expanding it any further before.
I was gonna ask the same question, but a different way. Could we still take our money that we had budgeted for that and add it to the money that was coming in from the grant to grow the program?
Yeah, I mean, we still, because right now we've got 125, but the state wasn't allowed. And we haven't gotten it. So we
No,
still
I
pay for
understand.
that, but-
That's kind of where you're going, right?
Yeah, yeah. I was just wondering, is this going to be a huge, when we said, it sounds like there's data to support the need for preschool, and that will improve. That's great data-driven decision-making, but I just assumed maybe the cost was going to be so exorbitant, you guys hadn't even considered it. But now that
Facilities,
you've been
too.
given the thumbs up to expand it, it's all looking like it will work out.
Yeah, we don't have the number of students that would indicate that we need to make more classrooms, is I guess the first thing that I came up with, just initially looking at the number of students we have coming in, looking at what their needs are, as far as services, like if they receive speech, occupational therapy, physical therapy, social work, looking at all those needs, it would cost the district if we put them all into different schools, but looking at how many students we have, now you're looking at having, 6 kids in a classroom in one school and maybe 15 in a classroom at another, and so you're going to have inequities that way too. So, I mean, basically what I found in trying to get to that point of what would it look like to have, get as many children as we can is really we have the ability to meet those needs next year. Plus
And-
something
Yeah, and then
else
to
to
go,
consider.
to go back to what you said too. Originally, when we were talking about this, what we said was, is there a way under what our program is right now that we can grow the seats naturally without putting on a big cost? And the board said, let's not look at the cost, let's make sure that we can capture everything. So, like right now, we're capturing everybody that's signed up for it.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
we're looking to.
Almost
Yeah.
like, yeah, I
It
don't
was
think we
a
expected
pleasant
to be 7
surprise.
seats.
Pleasant surprise,
Or all-
absolutely. Yeah. So, and the other thing to consider is if we get the grant, the reason why I don't think we should move forward with having the tuition and registration and stuff, put those fees out there right now, is because if we get the grant, we can't charge students to attend preschool. So that's, like, we'll send our letters out this May, but we'll put a little caveat in there saying, basically being upfront and saying we're applying for a grant and this may impact registration fees. You will pay at most, $75 for it, but and then we'll talk about transportation. So yeah, it was a happy surprise, and it might come down the road years from now that we do have more students that we need to service, and I think we have a good start at knowing how we can do that.
The transportation is covered in the grant before too, right? So potentially-
Transportation, we covered the transportation for special ed students, but not those in the blended preschool.
Yeah, and it was not written in the grant. It can be written in the grant. So transportation, if there's funds available, it could be written in the grant.
And if
Yeah.
they're not part of the grant, they could be claimed as reimbursement.
For special ed.
Thank you, that was excellent.
Yes.
So,
Awesome news.
question for you guys, do you need anything to come to the board, because we're really holding the program as is, but, I could inform the board.
Yeah, I think a report about where we are, I mean, I think it makes good sense to hold off and see where we end up with.
Would you guys prefer superintendent's report, or we could?
Superintendent's report, I think would be a great, that way people give you, be able to give you some feedback if you have any other questions. Thank you. Math resource adoption.
So, what we are looking at, I know Melissa just kind of asked me to be here, so, we were looking at adopting a curriculum called, or a resource called Into Math, published by Houghton Mifflin Harcourt. And, when the committee, the math committee kind of, we looked at different programs and they came up with this one, that I sent out for cost proposals from the company, and they sent me 4 different proposals, and I was like, okay, let's look at these. Some of them I kind of fell over my chair at first. Oh my God. And a couple of the proposals, when I really looked into them, I'm like, nope, those are not for us. That does not give the teachers the resources they need for what we know we need for our kids and what our kids need, so I kind of put those off to the side right away. Those were the 2 lowest cost ones. And then I had to look at, between the 2 highest cost ones, what we thought it would cost. The highest proposal came in at about $138,000 for just the resources. And the second one was at just about $117,000. I think Melissa had budgeted $120,000. And so I reached out to the whole committee today and a couple of the additional pilot teachers and said, okay, here's the differences between the 2 packages. What are your thoughts? And I tried not to lead them. I'm like, your perspective is what I need right now. I don't want to leave you high and dry, but I need to know what you need. And they basically 100% came back that they would prefer the second, the package that's about $117,000. So they basically said, the one workbook that's missing, it's totally available online. They're like, that's totally sufficient. That's what we need. We can get it there. And the second part that's different is the amount of manipulatives that we'll be getting. And they said, the teachers basically told me, we have lots of manipulatives from the math kits we've had over the years. We should be okay. But if we don't have enough, can we purchase what we need later? And so, I know I've talked to Melissa, and I think that is a good way to do it. So that's a $22,000 difference. I think that's a really good way to look at it. Like, yeah, we're not going to probably buy $22,000 worth of manipulatives, but we can get what we need at a later date.
And just kind of a breakdown for you guys too. You'll see up here, I have the 2017-18 budget, and this is just the textbook purchasing budget, the 2018-19, and then our proposed 2019-2020. And so you can kind of see our total budget line. 17-18 was about $155,000. That was the year we bought science textbooks. This year it was about $143,000, and we bought 6 through 12 math. Our budgeted if I budget about $120,000 for this math series, we're at about $157,000. So you can kind of see, we basically have this pot of money, and I shift it to whatever grade level is getting our textbook adoption this year, and so we've been able to kind of keep it flat over the last 3 years as far as the money in the pot and how we're spending it. So this year, the math, that 120 will come in not too much above what it was this year for our budget money.
The first proposals with the bells and the whistles
Yeah,
are
they're
always nuts. And then, I don't know how you guys have the patience to wait through some of that stuff. 'Cause
Well, and they started off at first, they came back to us at first because we asked, we said, listen, we use HMH, which is the shortened form of Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, for 6 through 12 math. So we're looking at doing K through 12 in that same company, so it should go. We said, is there what's the discount for doing, we're just continuing it down. So we'll really be basically an HMH math district. And originally our rep said, oh yeah, there's a discount, and we could do that. And when our teachers kind of are making that recommendation for a brand new one, they said you can't do that for this new one because it's brand new. But what we can give you is a 10% discount on all your materials, which is the max discount they can give, and a 50% discount on shipping. So we're getting half price shipping, and we're getting 10%. So then I just had to wade through the different packages and see what was included in each of the packages and what we'd be missing for each step down package. And our rep's been very good about sending us all like the detailed stuff as he can come up with it. And he doesn't, since it is so new, he doesn't know. He's been reaching out to everybody. So, like I said, so I think we're very, very confident coming in at that it's $116,713.
Do we have any wiggle room left? I know that it seems like we always go back and forth like 17 times, or would you guys say we've kind of done,
I think
maximize that?
we might have, I mean, that's as much as we're gonna get for
And
this
a lot
year.
of times we're truly trying to say, this is what we really use.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Questions on that? We presented the whole series to the curriculum committee, so that's why we're gonna go with like, how we got to this series and the discussion. But any further questions that I can help answer?
I'm just kind of curious, does anybody happen to know offhand how many are $50,000 worth of Northwood Middle School books? I'm just, I'm like wondering, is it like at college, a textbook, $200? Are we paying $200 a book? Are we paying?
What they are, they're a consumable workbook that we have a 6-year license on, and they'll be shipped to us every year for 6 years.
Okay. Any?
That's
something-
not the
something
case
that's not
at the upper
consumable?
That's not the
levels.
case at the 6 through 12, but for the middle school, for the 6 through 8, it's a workbook that we have basically.
And I'm just kind of curious, is this like college where, a textbook is $200, or is this so many that actually each textbook is only $75 or something like that?
I
I don't
think,
have that with me.
I thought last year at the high school, I thought they were around 90.
Okay.
I thought, but I mean, they're textbooks.
Right, when we divide by-
And they do have the online resources the kids would have availability to, like the textbook online when they go home if they don't have a textbook with them.
I
But
just
that's
haven't
what-
seen one of those packages in a while. I know that when you are short one, you can reorder one at a price.
Yeah, and it's not just the books, like I said,
Yeah.
it's the teacher materials and
Teacher
the online
resources.
access, and it's more of just a package of.
That's actually what my question
In
was.
this day, it's digital licensing for every student as well. So it's hard to compare a hardback textbook cost with.
Okay.
But what we did when we were figuring yesterday, that the cost of the middle school adoption with everything, all the teachers, all the digital, came out at, I think,
It was $103 per student.
$103 per student over 6 years. So take 103 divided by 6, and that's what a student
Per year.
a year.
No, yeah, that was the total cost per student.
But that involves
One-time
all-
cost.
Yeah, one-time cost.
And if you divide that by 6.
And then this,
That's for the highest one, hold on.
oh, that's not for the ones that,
Uh-uh.
okay.
For students. So we're looking at purchasing this for about 784
84
students.
students.
So at 17,000. We're looking at a one-time cost per student of $149 about. So
That's
you divide that
over
by 6
6
years, that's about $25 a year. Right.
Yeah.
As a parent.
Did that help your question?
I was gonna ask, I've never heard anybody actually tell me, what does a package include? I've heard bits and pieces
Yeah.
from like 3 different people.
I can
So-
tell you that, I have that.
I know there's textbooks, I know there's workbooks, I
Sure.
know there's a digital licensing agreement.
So let me
and
go
I know there's
to-
online help.
So what a package would include is for the student resource package, so per student, they get, for the one we're looking at, is the student edition, which is a consumable, they write in it and things like that, plus online. And they also have that in Spanish, which sometimes you have to pay extra for Spanish, so it's the Spanish as well, online. There's also a bilingual math board, which we didn't get to see, this is so brand new, we didn't see the full package, but there's a bilingual math board for each student for 6 years. And then a practice and homework journal, and they get one of those every year for 6 years. For the teacher resource package, there is the Teacher Digital Management Center, so they get to put their whole class in, they get to assign their class lessons and stuff like that, which then goes into that student package. It has the videos and everything like that in English and Spanish. It has a teacher bookcase, which I think they must have like,
It's professional development.
So it's not a physical book
It's-
case.
It's
Right.
online. where they
Okay,
can-
is that what that is?
It's, yeah, where they can access
on-demand professional development.
on-demand professional development.
A differentiation centers to use with their students, which was one of the big things that we were looking for in a series, and manipulative kits. And then also, this series has what they call HMH growth assessment, which I think you can talk about a little more.
It's such a beautiful thing. 3 times a year, it's an assessment that, much like sort of math, it's a graduated assessment, so as the students take it, it levels. The answer they answer to this question decides what the next question is. So you get a reading 3 times a year of where students are at, and resources in the program that when gaps are identified, what resources the teachers should use to address that gap. And because it's 3 times a year, and because we're in this whole growth mode, it's set to quantify a student's growth throughout the year.
And do,
And this is this you can tell my nerdy part. But we're very familiar in education with something called a Lexile level for reading. Now, nationally, they have made the equivalent to that in math, and it's called a quantile. And so we will know where our students, yeah, I know.
When did this start?
I just heard, I went online and checked it out. It's existed for about 5 to 8 years, but this is the first I've ever heard of it embedded in
Makes sense.
in a series. And that can travel. It's a meaningful number that will travel with a student from district to district, from level to level, and it also helps you identify what materials. It's easier about the materials in reading because the whole libraries can be Lexiled. So when you want it on level reading appropriate material, the whole library. Now we don't have libraries of math materials, but still, as it becomes a universal quantifier, it will make accessing what students need.
and will we own those results, or will the textbook company own those results?
We'll own
We
those.
own this.
And be storable on
Oh, yes.
wherever that
Yes.
would go?
So is the only time that you get the assessments is 3 times? I mean, is it in a time frame where if you take an assessment in October, that you can make adjustments to it?
Yes, it's 3 times during the academic school year. And I'm not saying the results are instant, but you don't have to send them anywhere. They're electronically scored in the system, and the teachers will have the results. What's the turnaround on like math data?
Map is right away.
Yeah, so it's very usable.
So it's kind of like that overview benchmark data for the teachers or the building to say, okay.
I was
where
gonna
are
say
we
the
at?
maps reports, generally, you can get back, what, in 24, 48 hours?
Well, I mean,
But then the
yeah.
in-depth comprehensive reports, usually within a week after you close your window, right?
No,
Or
well,
is it sooner than
the
that?
reports like that ECRA gives, those take a little longer, about a week or 2 after you
Okay.
close your window. But MAP, you can get a more in-depth report after 24 hours of your class being done testing.
And since it's intuitive, as you're talking about, it
Yeah.
learns as the student's taking it, is it modifiable at all? Will a 3rd grader teacher at Manchester be able to go, my students need to know this sort of data and this sort of data to create that test? Or is it somehow
No.
somebody's standardized test?
It's HMH developed to correlate with the pacing of their series. So it will be answering that based on the pacing that HMH has embedded into their series. What I can tell you is that I'm most familiar with the middle school this year. First time in my career, a series has put the right amount. In other words, most textbook companies put everything in there just to make sure they can meet everybody's needs. Well, HMH has studied this to the point of what they put in their textbooks is doable in a year, and so I trust, and our teachers are reporting that it is in fact, yeah, this is doable, and so it will. And it's all aligned with Common Core standards. It's aligned with to which the high stakes testing is aligned. So I think there's no need for teachers to adjust it.
So, but to answer a little more of your question, it has an assessment, a different kind of assessment component there. So
yeah,
the
this
teacher can
isn't
say,
the only
I
one.
need to assess, we've done chapter, I don't think they call them chapters, like module 1 or whatever they call it. I want to assess on module 1. And the teachers can manipulate those questions, like you can get their basic
Has a
test.
test bank and they can make an
And
online
then, or they
test.
can
Yes.
make their own test,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
to answer that question
There's way more
there.
assessment capability than just this one that's got me so excited.
And I'm assuming this has all been synced with tech and a tech plan. I don't know to what extent we use ebooks or we're able to use ebooks, but are we still pretty much physical books because we can't go
Hybrid at this point.
hybrid?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and when you say hybrid, you mean like a
There's
teacher
carts.
has the option
Yeah,
of being
if
a
the carts are
physical book?
available.
Okay.
Yes.
And at the K through 4 level, I mean, 5 is definitely going to be more, would like to be more blended, but the K through 4 level, especially when we're looking at those little peoples, they definitely want, math needs to be a lot more paper-based.
Are the textbook companies enticing us financially to go towards ebooks, and they'll give us these data packages and these
No.
modifiable test banks and this testing system with an ebook at
No, because
the college level? It's like a quarter of the cost of a physical book.
well, we could get a digital-only package, but you don't get anything. They're not going to get their centers, which we know is best practice for kids to be in these learning centers while, they can work in small groups. You don't get, let's see, any of the manipulatives. You don't get anything. All you're getting by buying the digital-only package is a student and teacher digital license, nothing else. So no, it's really not.
The
Okay.
really interesting thing we found last year, because we tried to beat the system last year and say,
We did.
especially at middle school, because they are one-to-one, we don't need all this print materials. And we estimated about how much we needed, and we said, so we want all digital, and we thought we would save money by not getting print for every single student and still have enough. It was more expensive. They make it less costly for you to take both digital and print on every student than to try and save on your print.
That's a shame.
Because, yeah, it was mind-boggling.
At K through, yeah,
That was,
Yeah. 6-8.
yeah.
Thank you.
And I will tell you, I went through each of the packages because I wasn't, when I first thought that 132,000, I was like, I don't know about, or 138,000. I'm like, don't know about that. I'm like, let me really dig into these packages. And there were a couple that I'm like, this just doesn't meet our needs. This is not what our teachers are looking for. So, I didn't want to. But I was, when I talked to the whole committee and they said, no, I think we don't need that 138. We can go with that $116,000, $117,000 package. That will still meet our needs. And that still drops out the two other lowest end ones, which really don't meet our needs at all.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
And then for the board next week, you'll have that full quote from HMH in there, so you can kind of look at that along with our recommendation.
Thank you. Technology purchases.
Okay. So we've kind of come up with a general idea of what we're looking at for next year for technology purchases. I went through just the same way I did with the curriculum of the budget proposal that we've done the last 3 years. As you can see, 17-18 budget, we had about $378,000 that we spent in technology. Last year, our budget was about $376,000, and this year we're proposing about $376,000. This does not take into account any of our title grant money that we use for technology, so sometimes we'll get a chunk of title grant money that we're able to purchase some more computers or laptops or something with, but this is just out of our local funds. Our technology purchases come from local funds as well as that grant money like I just talked about. We also receive reimbursement through the E-rate program for some of the purchases we make, like our internet provider and stuff. We can get up to 80%.
We were at 80%.
We're at 80% reimbursement back for that. So we do get some reimbursement back for some of our tech stuff. This year, right now, we have about $38,000 to spend from our Title I grant money right now. So you'll see in a few minutes, I'll show you kind of some ideas we have for that, that we need to spend. One of the things that we're looking at doing this summer into next year is our smart boards. We have about 6 smart boards at Cape Ren, 3 in the district, 1 at Upper High School. About $28,000 that needs to be replaced. This is one of the areas that we're looking at potentially using that title money that we have this year to purchase these smart boards to replace them in our schools. Another area that we're looking at is high school laptops. We're purchasing the laptop and docks for our high school teachers. This would be potentially in the 19-20 budget. This would give our teachers 40 new laptops to start transitioning to that one-to-one. And Dr. Greenlee had done that kind of overview of our technology plan. We had looked at some of this one-to-one, and this is kind of the first steps of going in that direction. The cost of that's approximately $38,000 for that. Another area that we're looking at is our UE middle school devices. Each 5-6 student would get a Chromebook, about $255, and then replacing the 7-8 devices at the middle school. Some of those are approaching their end of life. They've had them for a while. There's about 300 devices there, potentially. One of the big conversation pieces, and this is what is going to drive kind of what we're able to do in this fiscal budget, is this UE middle school device purchase. And we kind of want to have some conversation about this. If we purchase the devices outright this year, it's about $128,000 for 5 through 8. There's another option we could do, which is leasing the devices. It's a 4-year lease, and at the end of that 4-year, you can buy every single device for $1, so however many there are. The first year of the lease would be about $50,000, and then it'd be about $30,000 for the next 3 years, and then about $465 to buy out at the end. So it's an option. If we leased all of them, we could definitely do our 5 through 8, our high school laptops, and get those all in this year. If we end up buying them outright, we would have to cut back in one area to make it fit within the budget. So that's kind of a conversation piece we can have, but that's something, an option that I wanted to at least
That
discuss.
was what we kind of wanted to bring to the board. Is
Mhm.
if we look to continue to push devices 5 to 12, leasing can obviously bring more devices quicker. But again, talking about that bang for the buck, because you don't want to lease, but sometimes, in the end, you end up paying a little more. And if we're not interested in going that route, then we would spin around and then say, how do we make sure we hit the budget? If that makes sense. As you kind of hear, just with the idea of growing those devices to kind of help support the resources that we're bringing into these classrooms and stuff.
And
Go
the
ahead,
last,
Melissa, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. Any questions too along the way, you guys can jump in. The last thing, and this is kind of this will be coming to the board for approval as well, is the SAN update. It's about $25,000. That's an estimated cost. This is kind of, and this is out of my realm, I'll be honest with you, but this is the virtual environment, school infrastructure that runs essentially our Power School Meals Plus. So this is one of those things that we've got to upgrade to keep us going, essentially.
If it goes down, we're in a world of hurt.
Yes.
And we know it's kind of at it's approaching towards its end of life.
Yes.
So
And it takes some time to get
call
done.
it like
so-
the vital organ.
Right.
the
The heart of
type
our.
thing, and it's just one of those, it's time to recycle it so that we don't put ourselves in a bad spot.
So that's included in that budget, and that's one of those big purchase items that will be coming as well. So I'm going to open up for questions for more.
Comments, and this one is where we truly are looking for input,
Yeah.
and talk, and thoughts. Love board input on this one, just so we can continue to move the right way, support kids and what they need to do in the classroom.
So, just a couple things.
phone list. What is the life, in the slide before you talked about this, you mentioned like 1-year-old ones you were keeping, and then the older ones don't. And then in the next slide, you talk about that, you would be keeping them or potentially looking at buying them in year 4 on the $1 buyouts. And what is the lifespan that you plan on?
4 years typically, but these new ones are really well refined, and they've really made them a lot better than some of the past ones that we have. So I have a little bit more confidence in them. That's why I put the $1 buyout in case at the end of 4 years we could push them down to like an elementary, let's say.
But you're still, that may be at the end of the lifetime, that 4-year person.
It just depends on how nice the kids are to them. So, but I have a lot of confidence in these.
A lot of the laptop devices, though, we kind of estimated just through our general conversations.
Mhm.
That if we get to 4 years, we feel like that's kind of where we expect the life expectancy. How well they're treated, and sometimes depending on the model. Yeah, and then whatever we can hold that's good, we'll recycle and move to another place where we can use devices. So, like for instance, the ones in the middle school right now, which are 4, getting ready to go
4 and
to
5, yeah.
we're at a point where the battery life's gone, and correct me if I'm wrong, they're at a point where some of them have kind of expanded from the battery,
Mm.
you know, so they've hit their end of life, which seems bad. But they're at 4.
Yeah, I would have thought 4 to 5 years in technology.
That's what we try for.
And then, Melissa, did you, that comes out to be about 14,000 liters?
Mhm.
What's that percentage?
They don't classify a percentage rate in their contract as a, they don't charge you interest, they say, like there's no fees, but it's about $30 a device.
For the life.
For the 4
You haven't
years.
calculated what, because that does work out to be great.
Right. No, I have not. I can though, I have not.
What did we figure was like, you'd end up spending $30 more per device if you went the lease route, I think is what we kind of looked at.
And then my other question on the virtual environment, and did you compare that to what, like if you went with a cloud-based, and you just decided you weren't going to have a virtual or a physical environment, and you had Power School hosted, I'm assuming things would be like that available on the other.
We did not.
We didn't
That's
talk
just
about
keeping the
that.
current one going.
That's something we could discuss. And
Mm.
the virtual environment starts getting above my stratosphere, but it would be something we could discuss and bring to Randy and say, cloud-based, what does that look like? Because is that an option?
And before we do that, we'd want another internet connection coming in, just so we could have some sort of redundancy in case one went out. Because if one went out, then, the cloud goes away. And there's been, I don't know, I think twice this year, we had some troubles with that.
So you don't have redundant connections.
No, we just, we're kind of, our location doesn't help us with that. But we're looking into it, so we can go to some cloud stuff later on.
And you do have a virtual environment now?
Yes.
You're just looking to upgrade it?
We'll just keep it going. The stands at end of life, as far as updates.
In 6 years, 7 years? or something
Yeah,
like that,
somewhere in
that
there.
we're-
So they're not supporting it anymore, so we can't get the updates for them. So that's why we're going to update just that piece of it to continue the updates.
And that's strictly software then?
Mhm.
That you're updating?
Oh, no, it's hardware,
That's a
but
hardware.
we can't get the software updates anymore for that hardware due to it being end of life.
It's about 11% for the 4 years. I didn't do it yearly, but it's about 11% for 4 years. That 15,000.
Hey, Carl.
Yeah.
Hello.
Take privacy.
We're not going to let you out that easy.
So as long as we're on the leasing part, I guess the questions that I have are, I've never seen a lease that didn't lay out the insurance part. We can't lease in my world unless there's insurance involved with it. But this looks like an official contract. I didn't see anything in there about responsibility, about who's going to make repairs. In our world, the insurance, John Deere, we're responsible for repairs. So it seems like it we're gonna be the ones making the repairs, that needs to be something that we should have been presented to, because it essentially turns out to be a hidden cost in a lease.
Yeah, we would definitely do all the repairs. We're self-maintainers for everything. And
Say that again.
we are self-maintainers, so that means that, you know, we buy the parts to repair everything ourselves.
So we're gonna lease something that we don't own, we're gonna be solely responsible for repairing it.
Yep. Just to keep it going. And then,
Is that based on what the lease is right now?
Yes.
That's our job to maintain,
Mhm.
which, like you say, that may not have any cost.
That-
Our people own it.
that just goes into our general budget for repair. And then I believe at this point, the
Do-
student pays half of
Do
that breakage.
these tech companies, whatever, do they have an insurance plan?
We could find one, definitely, yeah, but typically you spend so much that I look at it, I can spend 10 grand on insurance for these devices, or I can look at how much I've spent just on repair parts over the past year, and it's nowhere near that ever, so I never purchased it.
Then you're solely responsible for making a decision about the quality of that product then, right? I mean, as a board, once we sign a lease, if they all fail, you're going to have issues with them. We're making all those repairs.
Well, if they all fail year one, then that would be under the manufacturer warranty. But as far as you want us to get, or look into,
For me, it's,
Multi-year.
if my customers lease something, it's because they want to guarantee what their cost of production is. This is going to be the maximum amount of dollars that they're going to spend on that piece of equipment. They're going to have no other costs involved in it.
yeah, this
This
isn't like
seems
that.
incredibly open-ended.
This is just like if we purchased it ourselves and it broke.
Well, that's the point I'm making.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, if I'm going to look at this plan, I don't see why we wouldn't just purchase it.
Yeah, it's just more money outside of our budget to do what we want to
Can
do.
look into, like the insurance piece.
That's just
too.
my opinion.
No, I'm okay with it. That's what we want, kick it around, beat it up.
The virtual environment piece, we're going to Amazon Web Services because we can essentially buy what we need, and when we have peak times when we're testing, or we have a big flows of data like are coming up here in the next week, we'll finally start running. They ramp up and give us all the server access that we need, and then when that peak goes by, then we get charged appropriately. I mean, I think that maybe that has some value to at least look at rather than trying to host our own virtual environment.
I agree, and it's been brought up at meetings, and it's been, the seed's been planted for us to look into stuff like that.
Okay.
But we just need to, like I said, get the redundant internet connection, and we've already signed all of our E-rate stuff, so we can't really switch at this point to get that unless we want to pay full price. We like that 80%.
And then, so for me, I mean, where I get to with this every year, and I've been consistent on it in 4 years, what are our goals? If we're going to a one-to-one practice, what do we expect to see? I don't think that we can go into this saying, well, it's best practice. Kids are more engaged. I mean, kids are more engaged is what we've been told by professionals is catch term. They're supposedly not as big a discipline problems with it because they got their heads stuck in the device. They're still listening to the teacher. They're still not getting any more out of the presentation. But those are the things I would hope that we could get by so that we can begin to talk about if we want to do technology. If I want to sell technology to Carl's farming operation, we have to have a conversation. Carl expects to get out of that technology purchase, and we have to deliver on that promise. That's what we're engaged in. And for 4 years, I've been saying, if we go down the technology side, and I'm not opposed to it, what is it that we hope to gain? Having devices in front of kids is not enough to justify these kinds of expenditures every year, in my view. We need more out of it. So that's where I'm at. I mean, it's not the first time you've heard that.
No.
So, but yeah, here we are again. We were joking about, Groundhog Day, the movie, but here we are, year 4, talking about the same things over and over again. It's not a criticism.
What's
It's
that?
not a criticism
Oh,
of
okay.
anybody. I'm just telling you guys said you're looking for feedback. That's what I want to hear. Right? If I put AutoTrack on a tractor and I farm 1,000 acres, my customer's going to see $13,000 worth of return. And people say, well, kids aren't tractors, but you also can't predict the weather. Can't predict commodity prices. So there's more similarities between the industries that we're talking about than there are disparities.
It's essentially just to keep our kids competitive with the rest of the kids out there when they exit our district. you know, as far as understanding how to use technology, how to learn with technology. You know, a computer is an awesome tool that makes you much more capable than without one. And so those are some of the skills that we want to teach them. You know, it's not the old school learning anymore where we want you to memorize this and then, you know, do this, do that, do that. We want them to, you know, come up with answers on their own and create things. And a lot of times through computers, that's a way they can do it.
I totally get that, but each one of those kids is already carrying around a computer and putting it in their pocket. So I mean, if that's what we were going to, then maybe we should be moving to a bring your own device program. I thought that we were going to a one-on-one so that we could control content and that we could use that in a way that we could drive our curriculum and our student achievement forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. Did you say you had an example of a good BYOD school or the last meeting?
Yorkville had that conversation. They're still talking about, you know, if that's going to be the next migration of that program is stuff on South Way. And they use the same rationale, Jerry. They don't like that right now with the one-on-one. They had more control over what the kids had. But
Well, control, consistency, you know, and just stuff like that. Reliability of the devices, and you know, you bring your own device, you have all your games on it, you have this, that, or the other, and then, oh hey, Johnny brought a virus in, and now none of the school's computers work, or none of the BYOD devices that were connected to that network work anymore because they were all infected. Those are the type of things we try to control through, you know, standardizing the devices
Maximizing
and
instructions
controlling
would be
it.
another big
And
piece.
you know, I did put something out to our listserv just asking, you know, who are the BYOD schools, and I only had 2 responses. I think there was one by Champaign that called it a BYOD program, but it really was a purchase your own and bring it. That is what we want you to purchase. I mean, so it wasn't like, you know, bring any device that you would like to do. It's kind of just marketed that way. And so, but I'm all up for seeing. I'm gonna look into Yorkville and see, you know, what they're doing out there.
Joseph?
Is the 376 that's proposed for 2019, 2020, I didn't add it, then you went through all of these devices, do those equal
No,
370?
no, they don't. And that's kind of where we needed some guidance here was, if we leased, we could get it all in. If we're not gonna lease, then we're gonna have to go back before we come to the board and say, how can we do a simple budget? So this is our pie in the sky, what we wanted to accomplish this year, but we know there's budget constraints. And so that we just brought it all forward just as a conversation piece of what do we think about these big ideas.
Total
Right.
budget, total budget.
That's the total budget. And then the items that follow are just like what we want right now, under that total budget, within that total budget.
And we are gonna, if we
Yes?
end up not
No?
leasing.
Capital outlay would be it. Now, 154, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, I don't have it right in front of me, we're not at 154, because now that also includes some other things. The sand was in there, which was 24,000, and some other things. Back originally, what I told you, I was trying to stay around 100,000 towards devices, which I've done in the past. That's kind of my
What
own
is the,
problem.
so is this, we have not yet seen this year's tech wants. We have a number, but you'll be bringing it to us in little chunks.
These are your big total pieces. The rest of it are a lot of your service agreements. Jerry, what else can you speak to off those budgets that we know are built-in costs or fixed costs that we kind of got? These are our big purchase things that we're
That we're
looking
talking about right now, yeah. Outside. in
No.
that-
Like
in
some
that
of the
budget.
other things, tech and repair and maintenance, 3,000, that's what we budget in there, because that's what our typical history is. The professional development, you know, services, those are service agreements that we have, so that, those numbers you see are pretty close to what we typically get. What you see right now is our big kind of, what do you want to say, the variable or the X in that budget of what we do.
How does this fit in? Where are we with a tech plan? Is this,
Well, I ramped that tech plan out about moving towards one-to-one in the next 4 years. This stays consistent, and what it does is, this stays
wait,
within our.
hold on a second. The tech plan has been presented and is
I
done?
presented it to you in January to the entire board.
And that's it?
I presented what my vision was, and I've asked for feedback. presented it in January to the entire board.
Okay, but I don't remember that being at all complete, and we kind of had this conversation.
Okay, and if you want to deny it, nobody denied that night. I'm not saying nobody approved it either, but if you want to kick it and say, no, I cannot live with this, then give me that direction. And so what I did was kind of ramped out my vision of what I see based on,
Actually, I don't remember seeing
I'll
like a
send it to you.
finalized.
I'll send it to you again.
Okay.
In fact, I think it was on December, and we got running late, we kicked it into November, or January. And maybe it was January, February, but I know I presented that. And that was just kind of my vision, and that has been kind of driven out of what we are hearing from teachers, students, what's kind of coming to as we are adopting resources and we see what we need to help teach with the resources. So it's not just Mike Greenlee yelling, we need one-to-one.
I don't think that, but I guess I'm doing
Yeah.
the thing that Ed is sort of doing, make us feel comfortable that there
Yep.
is data, like the preschool thing, that there's data that suggests, because this is not new, this whole one-to-one thing is not new. There must be something out there that says it either works or it doesn't. And I would think that if there's data out there that shows that this works, that should definitely be presented to us, and I think we'd be hard-pressed to go, oh, just like preschool, they felt pretty confident saying there's data that supports you get them earlier, get them reading, get them engaged earlier, that there will be results in that. And I want to make sure that I see this as a big picture, which is why I was kind of asking, that's the yearly number, but this isn't the yearly request, because I think last year, when you'd come to us, and I would feel like it was new, you'd go, no, it was part of what was presented, I'm assuming the 376.5. I'm trying to see this as a big picture, and make sure that it's part of
So,
a plan.
and really, each year, what I'm trying to do is grow devices at buildings, like I've said, and that was presented in that plan, and also refurbish or refresh what is old in the district. So, you know, some of our old desktops that have been sitting there 8, 9 years, they're beat up and so slow. How do I get a refresh cycle in there too?
And that information was presented. I don't know that you were on the board or anyone was on the board, but I was part of that PIDA program the first year. I think maybe it was the second year of the PIDA program. But I know that was presented.
The
Where that
data.
information is at, I don't know. But,
The data side of it?
right, yeah.
Of one-to-one success, is that what you're
Right,
talking about?
yeah.
As far as the overall budget, this is proposed, obviously we haven't gone into depth in the budget, but this is what we've been doing the last 2 years. And the big things that came after this are our big purchases that we'd like to make for next year. Right now, it's, depending on if we lease or buy, it's a little bit over what we're predicting. So before we come back to you guys, to the board for final approval, we would tone it down to make our budget. But these would be the big things that we'd like to purchase, so to kind of look at the big picture. There are smaller things that obviously go in the budget, but typically, sometimes we do end up getting extra grant federal money that sometimes we come back to the board and say, hey, we've got this grant money, can we buy more devices? Because we try and use that to get more devices. Sometimes that comes later, but these are the big.
We
the
put
big ticket
placeholders in
items.
for replacing old smart boards every year, repair services, licensing services, it's
Yeah.
software stuff. So a lot of those things are kind of traditional, that just we have patterns set in of what we're using.
Molly sort of balked at the 136 or something like that you just presented us with. Does anybody balk at the 376, or is that, are we very confident about that? And no, she was like, I'm requesting, $136,000 for textbooks. Does anybody go 376 for technology? Or everybody's confident with that? I guess go ahead and say if you're confident with that. 'cause-
I'm confident with that. That includes all academic core areas, all non-academic core areas. So it's not just like a math, or this is what it takes to do the math. It's the whole 9 yards as far as what a teacher's going to use and run with.
I would have to look over that. Where that technology plan going.
So I'm assuming at the next meeting, you'll be presenting us with a number and items to purchase?
Yeah, all of a sudden you caught me off guard. Are we at that point? You know, I still just.
Well, if you're not, that's fine, but I'm anticipating on Tuesday.
At some point, yeah, at some point,
It won't be Tuesday, though.
Tuesday night?
Yeah.
I would look to bring it. If we table it,
Bring
we
what?
can, some sort of proposal. I was hoping to get some feedback tonight on, are we even open to the idea of leasing? But if you're wanting to kick it back, so we're not even open to the idea of getting that many computers, I can kick back there too, you know?
I guess I'll go two places. For me, the leasing always works if you can define what the costs are going to be. If we're not going to define what the costs are going to be, I don't see the value in it. Secondly, I'd like to see it pushed back far enough that we could have the curriculum director on board
Okay.
and see where that person is with all
And then
of this stuff.
With the
I
value
think-
to the curriculum and learning.
Well, maybe they look at this completely different.
Okay.
With a whole new set of eyes.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not just trying to kick the can down the road, but I
No,
think
that's okay.
that we've made a decision.
But I want you to have that comfortability with, as if we make this purchase, we're comfortable that this is going to make a difference.
Well, for me, I'm not there, because I need to hear the goals. What are we trying to accomplish? You know, it's got to be past engagement. You know, we sounds like we've got a math curriculum coming here where we can do more assessments. What I hear the teachers get the most value out of is the ability to do a weekly assessment, right? And be able to ghost essentially all their student devices, so when those kids are taking those tests, they're watching it on their device and understanding how kids are answering stuff, getting that immediate feedback. So Monday morning, you know, if they need to go back and redo something to get their kids back to where they need to be, that's the kind of vision that I see that we need for this technology purchases going forward. Those things are easier for me to get behind outside the money than just saying, hey, we want to do this. I get the whole maintenance thing. I really do. I understand it. But those are my big concerns, and I think that if we don't ask our technology to do that for us, we're leaving a lot of what we can get done for this out of the equation. Because we really should be able to leverage what we can get from these devices to drive our curriculum and our student achievement forward.
But a lot of what they do with the technology, so instead of purchasing a series, like again, we're doing for math, and again, what we're paying at $136,000, that's, what grades is that, K 5? You're talking ELA, reading, social studies. They don't have any textbook or anything purchased. They align their curriculum and map it out through the Common Core standards, and then they use that technology to help them teach those courses. So, I mean, you remove those and then go back to a series like that. Well, what's the trade-off there?
Well, and one of our fifth grade math teacher especially has said that she's like, I need that technology to really make this series do what it can do. Even though there is print-based things, in order to really support the kids and help them with their growth and, you know, those different things of that daily assessment and that feedback right away for those kids and helping them do that is, you know, she has said, she's like, I need that technology. I need my kids to have one-on-one, and I don't feel comfortable taking the computers away from the English language arts classrooms, but I need it in my math classroom. And so that was something, you know, she brought up with whatever, you know, with this, when it was Go Math or this new iteration of the Into Math, which is the better version, is that we do need that technology, especially at that fifth grade level. In the K through 4, you know, we're looking at going more of that 1 to 2, 1 to 3, usually 1 to 2 about, so that we don't want our littles on these all the time, but we do have things that we need them to do on and off. You know, we're trying to engage those more, but at that fifth grade level, I know that is one of the things that we brought up when we talked about the curriculum or the resources, is in order to really make it do what it can do to really see our students grow, is we need that technology.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm going to go back to the teacher survey that Jerry sent us. I mean, there was a wide swath of teachers that don't turn their devices on at all. You know, I mean, I think it was 25 or 30% of the teachers don't use their devices less than 2 times a week. So for me, that right there tells me that we don't have a whole bunch of people that are immersed in this culture.
On the same page.
You know, and so I mean, And I think that also needs to be part of this.
And I think that comes down to your professional development.
That was just the elementary level though,
I
right?
think it'd be more than professional development. I think getting people to embrace, that they're going to have to change after being behind a desk for 20 years, that there's other things that they're going to have to do. I think it's a culture shift. I don't think you can put it all on.
No, not all in
devices.
professional development, but I think putting it out there and say, there's something here, let me give you some tools to help you use these, and then going back in and saying, but you are going to also use these. We've given you the tools, now expect you to use them.
We want them to use them.
Yeah.
We want to coach them.
We want to coach them, but we want, yeah,
We don't force them to do those things.
but, yeah.
Any other questions? All right, let's jump up to high school athletic fees.
This was something Jake had brought forward just from the high school. And it was more informational for you guys more than anything. We just put together a little chart that showed our athletic fees are kind of high. And Jake, if you want to talk a little bit about the discussions that you and Sully and Dale have kind of talked a little bit about.
Sure,
Um,
especially when we talk about our conference, you can obviously see some of the bigger schools, and even some of the schools around the suburbs do have higher athletic fees than we do. If we're talking about increasing athletic fees, we wanted to see how some of the other schools did it. You can see in a lot of schools.
It wasn't so much for me as even increasing it, just taking a look kind of at where we were at.
I looked at this before. There's got to be a mistake here, right? Ooh, did we change conferences?
No, this
No,
isn't
well,
our conference. This
that's-
is just, I pulled area schools.
So, but
Sorry.
and here's what I'll tell you. Here's what I'll tell you,
We're not
Ed.
playing Harlem.
Sully did get, you're right, Sully did get information from other schools in our conference.
That's the business manager not knowing the conference.
It was, and, well, and I don't know that
Yeah, this was
Sully,
what we had.
I don't know that
Yeah,
Sully specifically gave that information
No, I
to
just
Melissa
pulled the-
either, so I do apologize
No, I
about
just
that.
pulled what we have. We have a survey that goes out to the area schools, and this is what they responded. So it wasn't more conference-based. It was just who responded to it.
You're correct, though. But we are the highest in our conference as well. And so just trying to increase, we actually have pretty good participation when you look at the participation between North Boone and our other schools in our conference. As far as the number of students we have out for athletics. But it's something, we would like to see more students get involved. There were a number of different ways other schools did it. There was one school in our conference that we thought was pretty interesting where they assessed an extracurricular fee to every student, whether they were in there or not. The only problem is when you do like a flat fee like that for every student, then obviously students with fee waivers, they don't have to pay those fees. So it was something at 40%, fee waiver, or well, with our Title I at over 40%, we would not really benefit from that necessarily. It wouldn't help out our students, I should say. So the best thing trying to look at it was even reducing it as much as $25 is something that we could add relief to our families.
Do you think our number of kids will go up? I see a lot of kids that are hindered by the.
I do believe we would end up having more people, more students who show an interest in our athletics. Students do limit. I don't think we'd have an overall number, but I think the students involved in multiple sports would increase. If that makes sense. Like we have some students who just do one extracurricular activity because, hey, this is the one I like and this is what we can afford. But I think in moving those down, we would see them get involved in more extracurriculars.
And just back to why we brought it, more informational and just discussional. It kind of goes back to what we did with when we started talking about registration fees. Are we really, I'd hate for it to hinder kids, but are we, I don't know how big of a money maker it actually is, but I want to make sure kids have the opportunity to have their own.
We've decreased fees in almost all of our other areas
So we
for
decided-
students, and so it'd be nice to try and make it a little more available for some of those students who want to get involved in multiple
feedback.
Thoughts?
I like the idea, to those kind of expensive. It's very expensive.
Others? This is something that Jake and I actually talked about when we coached it. When I'd like to see it go a step further, and I'd like to see our cap on family.
Sure, and I understand that. The other thing that I've kicked around, if you're involved in an athletic for a season, then you get into all athletic activities for that season. We're trying to kick around some other spirit club where you pay a straight up amount of money and get a T-shirt. We're also trying to increase the number of students at events as well.
We're going to do it board. Potentially bringing this back to the board.
You want this Tuesday night for a discussion for the whole board, or?
I'd like, well, yeah, I don't mind this discussion, but I don't think it's just my opinion. I'd just like to see it go one step further. I'd like to see cap for family.
Sure,
I remember dropping $1,000 for Ashley. His fees. By the time she played other sports, got a parking pass.
I'm right there with you.
yeah, I
We
think
heard that a lot,
there-
is by the time you got through the high school line and you got hit with about every few possible that program. So that's.
Isn't there a
Yeah.
$500 cap for families now? But maybe I'd be interested in moving that down.
I think there's a
Yeah,
per
there
student
is.
cap, but
It's a per student cap.
The per student cap is $250.
It's 500 per family.
I think it's $500 per family.
I think it's 500 per family.
100 to 150 if you do three sports, three extracurricular sports.
total, I don't have that.
Yeah, so it's 100 for the first two and then 50 on the last one for a total of 250.
My
Correct.
concern is what you really generate, maybe it's not as big as sometimes we think it
Plus, there's no way to make sure, I mean, it'd be one thing if you could guarantee the money back in sports programs, but it goes back in the general fund, it just gets blended in, so it's not really supporting programs that, most likely it's supporting.
is. Why don't I do this, then why don't we put together like a family cap and make a proposal, just put it for discussion tonight? Agree with that?
Thank you.
But I think what Carl said, request would be nice to see.
Yeah, I'll get
The
that.
total,
Sorry.
we'll bring that, it's a good idea.